Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Sorry for not posting videos in the last week or so, but I've been quite busy, but I have been making them in the background, so there should be more to come soon. This video today is all about reading Warhammer 40,000, and specifically the novels and the supplemental books that are around the current narrative, basically. So obviously, Warhammer 40,000 has been going on since sort of the late 80s. I think about 1987 was the first edition of Warhammer 40,000. So coming up for 40 years now, and hundreds of books and millions of words have been written in the universe, and so obviously I'm not going to cover everything. But what I would like to do with this video is just sort of set out the timeline for the current setting. And this is called the Era Indomitus because it's all around the Indomitus crusade, essentially, or Indomitus fleets, let's call it that, that happened as a result of the return of the Primarch Rabute Guilliman and his mission to sort of push back and retake lost worlds and sort of re-establish humanity's stranglehold on the galaxy after the Cicatrix Maledictum. So if you don't know, what happened was Games Workshop in about 2000, it was sort of the end of 2016, I think, when the first Primarch came back, who was Magnus the Red. And then this sort of built up into 2017, the launch of 8th edition. And really it was kind of a soft reset or a soft reboot of the setting in effect, because we saw the Gathering Storm trilogy of books come out, which weren't very well written in my opinion, but the story really did push on the narrative, because we saw the introduction of a lot of new characters with this series of books, such as the Grey Knight Voldus, the Inquisitor Greyfax, probably the most important one, Belisarius Cawl, who's now a big figure in the lore, and is responsible for the invention of the Primaris Marines and pretty much everything else as well. He seems to have invented hover technology again, and all the vehicles and armor and everything that we see for Space Marines in the modern setting, in the Primaris version of Space Marines. And who else did we see? Oh, of course, the Ynnari, with the Incarn and Yvraine and whoever her sort of sidekick was. I can't remember. It was a nice model, but I can't remember what he was called. But the other Ynnari character that came out. So that was like a sub-faction of the Eldar. They haven't really done much with them since, but they were introduced in these Gathering Storm books. And then there were a number of refreshes as well. So there was a great new Abaddon model, and a new Cypher model as well came out. But I think actually a new the Celestine model came out as well, didn't it, with the first book, I think. So great range of models, a real advancement in the story, and of course the two biggest events were Abaddon flying a spaceship into Cadia and blowing up the planet, which was a big event in itself. But the knock-on effect of that was that a huge warp rift opened up in the galaxy, which split the galaxy in twain. So you had the Imperium Nihilus in the north, and then Imperium Segmentus, I think it is. Don't quote me on that one. That is the sort of the southern bit, where Terra and sort of the main part of the Imperium is. So the Imperium Nihilus, the northern bit, is cut off now because of this Cicatrix Maledictum, as they call it in silly high Gothic Warhammer 40,000 language. Basically, it's disrupted everything. It's caused psychic powers to become stronger across the universe, and a lot of psychic effects happening. The Astronomicon, which is sort of the psychic beacon that the Emperor produces that guides the way through the warp and does other things, that has dimmed or can't be seen by some in some areas of the galaxy, and essentially the north is cut off from the south, with only, I think the Nachman Gauntlet is really the only way of crossing. It's sort of a bridgehead through, or it's like a causeway really in space through from the south to the north, or vice versa. So there's that. So the setting itself has changed in that respect. And then, of course, there was the big return of Roboute Guilliman, the first loyalist Primarch to return to the setting. And so the Gathering Storm books established this. And then we saw the trilogy of the Dark Imperium books, written by Guy Haley. And these were good, fun books, and they were all about, they sort of tied in with the launch of 8th edition, because we had the refresh of the Death Guard range as well. And as I said, Mortarion came back, and the 8th edition launch box was all about the new Primaris and the new Death Guard. It was a brilliant box, great models, and all the story and narrative tied in with this. So with the Dark Imperium trilogy, it was Guilliman's return, and then fighting the Plague Wars and fighting against Mortarion, who was trying to kill him. But I think just around the time the second of those books came out, which was Plague Wars, Games Workshop started on a brand new novel series called Dawn of Fire, again with Guy Haley at the vanguard of this, but with a range of different authors taking different novels, and it ended up being a 9-novel series. But the problem with this was that the Dark Imperium books were set, I think, 12. When were they set? 112 years, I think, after the return of Guilliman. So it was I think set at the end of the Indomitus crusade, essentially. But what this meant was that as they were writing the Dawn of Fire books, and they were using a lot of the same characters and filling in sort of a lot of the background before the Dark Imperium books, suddenly there was like this sort of massive time period of 112 years that they were trying to fill in, and it didn't sort of make sense. And things got very confused. And as time went on and other books came out, such as the Devastation of Baal, which was all focused on the Blood Angels' homeworld being invaded by the Tyranids, and the return of, not the return of Dante, but a new model for Dante, etc. Things started becoming much more complicated and weren't really making sense. So what Games Workshop did was they got Guy Haley to rewrite the first 2 Dark Imperium novels, and they were essentially moved from 112 years after the return of Guilliman to just 12 years. So they were brought forward 100 years. And the Dawn of Fire books, that series of books, is around the same time as Dark Imperium, just before Dark Imperium, essentially. So this made things made more sense, really, to the setting. But there was a lot of confusion around that for a while. And it wasn't really clear where exactly the Dawn of Fire novels, sort of in what order, what the chronology of these novels was. And then since then, over the years, we've seen different series of books come out. We had the Psychic Awakening books. We've had a lot of standalone novels, like the character series novels, like Huron Blackheart and Cypher and Helbrecht. We've had the Return of the Lion. We've had Crusade books focused on different areas of the galaxy. We've had the Warzone series of books as well, focusing on different conflicts, the Vigilus books. So there's been quite a lot that's come out, and it's all been not a mess, but there hasn't ever been really clarity on when these events were taking place and in what order. And even, I think, the Black Library authors themselves have been a bit confused about this, judging by some of their responses to questions on Twitter and things like that, and in interviews they've done. But recently, over the last couple of weeks, the final book of the Dawn of Fire series came out, which was called The Silent King. And I should say, like, another aspect is the rise of the Necrons and the Pariah Nexus. I mean, that was a big event. How does that tie into the narrative? And then with the launch of 10th edition, we've had the 4th Tyrannic War and, a Tyranid invasion, Tyranid uprising. So there's a lot of different sort of threats happening all over the place. Many of them involving Gilliman, who seems to be in all places at the same time. So I don't think people really, the average reader really knows or has known where things are fitted in. But as I was saying, the Silent King book came out, and at the back of this novel, Games Workshop have actually set out a timeline or a chronology of the major novels that they obviously see as being the sort of touchstones of the current narrative. So, there has been a lot of other novels that have come out, so a lot of sort of Sisters of Battle novels, Pilgrims of Fire, The Rose in Darkness, and the Morvenn Vahl novel, etc. And there's always lots of standalone novels. We've had Genestealer Cult novels, at least 3 of them. And we've had Broken Crusade, the Black Templar novel, and there are always loads of novels coming out. But I think what Games Workshop have tried to do is just set out the main ones that deal with the overarching narrative and are the main sort of spine running through this new setting in the Era Indomitus. And so I've looked at that, and I'd already sort of tried to work out the timeline and put together like a list of books in order, but some of which wasn't correct and has been corrected by this timeline in the Silent King novel. And then I've taken some information from other threads and just done a bit of research, and I've tried to come up with a timeline of all the novels and the supplementary books released since 2016-2017, really since the launch of 8th edition, and I've put that into a list. So what I'll do is I'll put that on the screen now, and hopefully this will provide you, if you're interested in the timeline for Warhammer 40,000, it will provide you with that and some clarity on what's been happening, when and where. And I mean, look, I haven't read all these books. I won't pretend I have. It's quite a lot. It's like 60 books we're talking about. Some novels, some supplements. But it gives an overview of what's been happening. And, the good thing about for Warhammer 40,000 is you can dip in and out wherever you want. So if you find Belisarius Cawl a fascinating character, you can maybe just read the Gathering Storm books and then move on and read something like his great work and Gene Father, which are books about him, essentially. So you can dip in and out. And you can always find something or a faction or setting or some sort of conflict or something that interests you in Warhammer 40,000. If you can't, then you just don't like Warhammer 40,000. So this video is not for you. But if you do, then hopefully this timeline will be of some use. So that's that. The only one grey area is with the Vigilus campaign, which some people think is around the same time as the Dark Imperium books. I think it might even sort of be alluded to in the Dark Imperium novels. But I think the chronology of it is that it happens after the devastation of Baal. So I've put that after the devastation of Baal. So there may be some inaccuracies in this, but this is my best guess at the sequence of events of the current narrative. So that's that. I hope you enjoy the video. What I'll do now to end it, and it's quite a long ending, is I'm going to put up the cover of each book in order and just read the blurb, just read the synopsis of the novel or the supplement, just to give a flavour of what's happening. And so if you're interested, you'll know. This will be a resource for people to know what each book is about without having to go and look it up. So that's that. So I hope it's useful and informative, and and if you do like the video, please like and subscribe to the channel if you want to. If you don't, then that's cool. I'm just happy to have you here, and hope the video is of some use. And let me know in the comments if it is, and what books you recommend, or if you think anything should be added to the timeline, or you disagree with any of the sort of sequence of events that I've put here. I'd be interested to hear what people think about this, because I haven't seen anyone else do a timeline to this extent. So yeah, as I say, hopefully it'll be useful. But that's it from me. So until the next video, take care. Thanks. Bye. Vaults of Terror: The Carrion Throne by Chris Raitt. In the hellish sprawl of imperial terror, Ordo Hereticus Inquisitor Erasmus Crowell serves as a stalwart and vigilant protector, for even the throne world is not immune to the predations of its enemies. In the course of his emperor-sworn duty, Crowell becomes embroiled in a dark conspiracy, one that leads all the way to the halls of the imperial palace. As he plunges deeper into the shadowy underbelly of the many palace districts, his investigation attracts the attention of hidden forces, and soon he and his acolyte Spinoza are being hunted by heretics, Xenos, servants of the dark powers, or perhaps even rival elements of the Inquisition itself. Soon they discover a terrible truth, one that, if allowed to get out, could undermine the very fabric of the Imperium itself. The Gathering Storm, Book 1, Fall of Cadia. Chaos rises, war rages, the Imperium faces its darkest hour. Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade crashes against Cadia, that most defiant of fortress worlds, driven by the full force of the War Master's contempt. Lord Castellan, Osaka E. Creed, fights to save his homeworld from this dire threat, but he does not stand alone. Rallying defenders from all facets of the Imperium, including the uncompromising Inquisitor Greyfax and Saint Celestine herself, he leads the charge, bellowing the undying mantra, Cadia stands. But Archmagos Belisarius Cawl has discovered that the stakes of this battle are far higher than anyone imagines. This war will determine not only the fate of Cadia, but of the whole galaxy. The Gathering Storm, Book 2, The Fracture of Biel Tan. Blood runs, anger rises, death wakes, war calls. Doomed by their own hubris, the soul-cursed Eldar teeter on the brink of extinction. While many of their number have resigned themselves to this eventual fate, there are those amongst them who believe their ancient race can rise anew through drastic sacrifice. Iniad, the Eldar god of the dead, must be awakened no matter the cost. With the spirits of the departed bolstering the living, the Eldar stand a chance of reshaping their destiny. Yvraine, Iniad's chosen prophet, embarks upon an epic quest that will see her divided people unite to form a new force in the galaxy, the Reborn, they who draw strength from death itself. The Gathering Storm, Book 3, The Rise of the Primarch. The storm rages, the sleeper awakes, hope rises in the fires of war. The galaxy is beset. The Cadian Gate is a shattered ruin, a boiling cauldron of war where the forces of chaos are ascendant. Biel Tan is fractured, broken apart during a quest for unity and salvation that may yet see the entire Eldar race follow in the Craftworld's wake. Through it all, warp storms rage with a ferocity not seen in 10,000 years, wreaking havoc across countless worlds and spilling forth the demonic entities of the Immaterium. Yet amidst the darkness shines a beacon of hope, an alliance between ancient enemies that may yet turn the tide. As malevolent powers gather beyond the veil, a desperate race against time begins, a battle across the stars that will culminate at the very feet of the Golden Throne itself. The Fall of Cadia by Robert Rath. Cadia licks its wounds in the wake of the 13th Black Crusade. The heretic forces retreat on all fronts. The day is won. But Lord Castellan Creed cannot rest easy. Something tells him that the assault was a mere prelude to something greater, something more final. He is right. Out of the Eye of Terror comes Abaddon the Despoiler, at the head of a war host unmatched in scale since the dread days of the Horus Heresy. In the face of the looming apocalypse, Creed must weld the champions of Cadia into a bulwark capable of withstanding Abaddon's fury. And in orbit, the Despoiler himself finds his own alliance teetering on a knife edge. Vaults of Terror, The Hollow Mountain by Chris Raitt. Inquisitor Erasmus Crowell has discovered a terrible plot, its roots firmly planted in the very highest levels of terror. Pursuing it is fraught with risk, but Crowell's sense of duty compels him to persevere. He and his acolyte Spinoza run down their leads in secret, knowing that their every move invites danger. But even as they begin to reveal the truth, a greater peril is enfolding in the skies. The Great Rift is becoming manifest. During the madness that threatens to tear Terra asunder, Kral's inquisitorial base of operations comes under attack and is badly ravaged. As his world begins to unravel and a new, bloody age dawns, can Kral stay true to his course and expose the horror that lies at the heart of the Hollow Mountain? Watchers of the Throne, The Emperor's Legion by Chris Raitt. The Custodian Guard have stood watch over the Emperor's palace on Terra since the foundation of the Imperium. Charged with protecting the Master of Mankind from all threats within and without, their fearsome resolve is renowned throughout the galaxy, and their golden armour is the last thing that a would-be assassin or saboteur will ever see. Alongside the Knoll Maidens of the Sisters of Silence, who are anathema to psychers and sorcerers alike, there is no threat to the Golden Throne that they alone cannot vanquish, until now. The Lords of Silence by Chris Raitt. The Cadian Gate is broken, and the Imperium is riven in two. The might of the traitor legions kept shackled for millennia behind walls of iron and sorcery has been unleashed on a darkening galaxy. Among those seeking vengeance on the corpse emperor's faltering realm are the Death Guard, once proud crusaders of the Legiones Astartes, now debased creatures of terror and contagion. Mighty warbands carve bloody paths through the void, answering their Lord Primarch's call to war, and yet for all their dread might in arms, there is no escape from the vicious legacies of the past, ones that will pursue them from the ruined demon worlds of the Eye of Terror and out into the smouldering wastes of the Imperium Nihilus. Psychic Awakening, Pariah. All ends in silence. Final ruination approaches. The galaxy teeters on the brink. Swelling tides of empiric energy stretch corrupting tendrils into every corner of real space as the bonds of time begin to break down beneath the gleeful attentions of the primordial annihilator. Yet in one distant corner of the Imperium Sanctus, roiling mayhem has given way to a mysterious and all-consuming silence. A pocket of icy darkness amidst a raging inferno. A breathless quiet rendered all the more deafening by the cacophonous screams that surround it. The Pariah Nexus claims a portion of real space for its own, and its bounds are spreading. After a long voyage, the warriors of Battle Group Kalides have at last reached the fringes of this still and silent zone. Now they must pierce the smouldering veil to do battle with its Xenos architects, and perhaps discover a way to halt this fresh threat to the Emperor's realm. Yet the cosmic artifice of the Necrons is terrible indeed, and it may already be too late. Psychic Awakening, Engine War. Arcana Mechanicum. From the churning depths of the warp, through the ragged tear of the Cicatrix Maledictum, and countless smaller rifts and warp storms, a corrupting malignance is infecting the Imperium. The Adeptus Mechanicus, fearful of losing its dominant influence and struggling to comprehend the outpouring of psychic manifestations, dispatches reclamation fleets to reconnect its forge worlds. One such fleet heads south, its cohorts bolstered by the superstitious nobles of the Padda March and their titanic night suits. Caught in a violent warp storm, the fleet is drawn to the forgotten world of Ordex Tharg, and there discover a twisted scheme overseen by a dread lance of Chaos Knights. Yet all is not as it seems. While the witch-hating Baroness of the Padda March seeks answers from her prophets, the tech priest at the head of the fleet reveals a hidden subcult on Mars itself, and his plans to unleash a terrible weapon of dubious provenance. Psychic Awakening, Saga of the Beast. Rampage of the Green Threat. Orcs run rampant in every corner of the galaxy. Wherever they tread, they bring anarchy, destruction, and death. Countless worlds have been set aflame. Billions are dead, billions more are enslaved. Were this not enough, many of the orcs' devastating migrations bear patterns unusual to this race of brutish, war-loving creatures. But movements thought random, in fact, have purpose. Purpose that could spell doom to the beleaguered Imperium of man. With much of the Imperium's armies waging war on every front against all manner of terrifying threats, the Space Wolves seized the initiative, determined to stymie the looming greenskin threat. Whatever happens, the orcs cannot be permitted to achieve their terrifying aims. Psychic awakening, faith and fury. Ascension of humanity. In the wake of the Great Rift's opening, the galaxy is beset by nightmarish phenomena, from temporal distortions to apocalyptic visions, where terrors uncoil from fevered dreams. The tear in reality and the warp storms around it hide a dark scheme woven by the Imperium's oldest enemies, who intend to use these occurrences to bring about mankind's damnation. But hope in these times is not yet dead, and wellsprings of faith have given rise to miracles and manifestations of the Emperor Angelic. A shining beacon of faith in the galaxy beset by war, the Teledus system was a stronghold of the Imperial faith. Now it has become a war zone, through which the Adeptus Astartes and Sisters of Battle confront the foul heretic Astartes. The Imperium has congregated here in armies of divine right, while zealous eyes view the worlds of the Teledus system with malignant intent. Psychic awakening, blood of Baal. A shadow deeper than night. In the wake of the tearing open of the Cicatrix Maledictum, the galaxy has been plunged into terror. Nightmarish psychic phenomena manifest in the Imperium Nihilus, the worlds there cut off from terror and the guiding light of the Astronomicon. In the scarlet-lit region of the Red Scar, a deeper shadow coils its way through the Imperium's vulnerable worlds. The ravenous tyrannids of High Fleet Leviathan threaten the homeworld of the Blood Angels chapter and hundreds of systems besides. Around them, the insidious shadow in the warp is making its presence known in the minds of those standing against the Xenos swarms. Yet hope remains with the scions of Baal. The Blood Angels and their successor chapters are blooded but unbowed. They continue to engage the questing tendrils of the Tyrannid invasions, striving to ensure humanity's future. Psychic awakening, the greater good. Oppression and emancipation. With the emergence of the Great Rift, the galaxy is beset by horror and war on a scale not seen in millennia. Hundreds of thousands of worlds are swept in the fires of thunderous battle as creeds, faiths, and ideologies vie for supremacy. Nowhere is this more true than in the Nemyar Atoll, base of the Tau Empire's daring Fifth Sphere expansion. Commander Shadowsun leads armies of fire warriors in new wars to expand the Tau Empire and spread the greater good. Her forces assail numerous imperial worlds, many of which stand alone. In these terrifying times, humanity clings desperately to its faith, its only solace in the dark. Beneath the surfaces of these planets are other, insidious forces. The gene-stealer cults have sunk their claws deep into their worlds in preparation for the coming of their deities, the Star Children, and they will not easily surrender their prizes. Psychic awakening, ritual of the damned. Storm of sorcery. Following the emergence of the Great Rift and its tearing of the galaxy in two, terror has beset the stars. Horrifying, reality-defying phenomena are commonplace. One individual embraces these portents with relish, the demon Primarch, Magnus the Red. Having brought the demon world, Sortiarius, known as the planet of the sorcerers, into real space from the Eye of Terror, Magnus seeks to enact a ritual to accelerate humanity's psychic potential across the entire sector. The consequences for mankind, if he is successful, are near impossible to imagine. But the Imperium is not without hope. The Grey Knights, demon hunters supreme, are aware of his foul machinations, and seek to prevent the ritual from coming to its hellish conclusion. Calling upon the mighty Dark Angel's chapter for aid, the two forces will stop at nothing to defeat the Crimson King. Psychic awakening, Phoenix rising. Hope and despair entwine. The Eldari are a race in decline, yet though their extinction looms, their power is great and their determination to face the threats against them strong. In recent times, a new dawn has risen for this ancient race, heralding what might be their salvation, or their doom. The Inari believe the former, and would see the slumbering god Ennead rise to conquer the Eldari's greatest nemesis, the chaos god Slaanesh, who will stop at nothing to defeat them. Now Yvraine, leader of the Inari, has dreamt of Slaanesh's huntress, who is bent on slaying her, feasting on her soul and ending the threat posed by Ennead forever. Calling upon elements of the disparate Eldari factions, Asayani, Drukhari, Harlequins, Corsairs, and Exodites, Yvraine stands on the verdant maiden world of Iathglass, ready to meet her race's fate. Psychic awakening, the War of the Spider. War upon the warp's ragged brink. The galaxy writhes in the grip of warp-spawned madness, as the tides of mutation, horror, and bloodshed rise ever higher. They engulf one world after another, while consigning countless billions of souls to oblivion. It is a time of unfettered mayhem, in which even the strongest risk losing all they hold dear to the ceaseless savagery of war. Yet there is opportunity, too, for those who know how to harness the mayhem, while pitting their foes against one another to their mutual ruin. Fabius Bile is one such agent of anarchy. The Spider has hatched a fresh and hideous plan for power amidst the flickering weird lights of the Great Rift, and now he pits himself against the might of Typhus's Death Guard and the agents of the Golden Throne in a gamble to seize incalculable power. The cost in lives will be high, but Bile means to ensure he is not the one who pays. Dawn of Fire by Guy Haley. A great darkness has befallen the galaxy and the armies of chaos are rampant. To survive, humanity must retaliate and take back what they have lost. By the will of the reborn Primarch, Rebute Gilliman, is the Indomitus Crusade launched, a military undertaking that eclipses all others in known history. From the throne world of terror does the avenging sun hurl his fleets, their mission the very salvation of mankind. As vessels in their thousands burn through the cold void, the attention of Fleet Mistress Van Lescus turns to the Makorta Sound, a region under attack by a dreaded slaughter host of the Dark Gods. The success of the Indomitus Crusade will be determined by this conflict and the desperate mission of Strike Group St. Aster, led by the Space Marine Lieutenant Massinius. Even then, it is but a prelude to the forthcoming bloodshed, for in the 41st millennium there is only war. Minkalesk, The Last White Shield by Justin D. Hill. Cadia has stood in grim defiance against the enemies of the Imperium for 10,000 years, an indomitable bulwark against the forces of chaos. But now, the 13th Black Crusade has come, and there will be no victory. Here, Minkalesk will be tested in the very fires of a world's destruction. Join Minka as she grows from a young white shield, struggling to survive in the ruins of the casa she called home, to a sergeant haunted by loss, fighting to excise the rot at the heart of an ecclesiarchy world, to a lieutenant who will do anything to break the stalemate in the grinding mire that is the siege of Crannog Mons. She will battle on, blooded but unbroken, for the honour of Cadia itself. Knights of Macragge by Nick Kime. The Primarch Rebute Gilliman of the Ultramarines has returned in the galaxy's hour of need, and all muster to his Indomitus crusade to hold back the darkness. Amongst these heroes is Cato Sicarius, Master of the Watch, and vaunted captain of the Second Company. Disaster befalls Sicarius and his brave warriors as their ship, the Emperor's Will, is lost to the hellish warp, its entire crew believed slain. But Sicarius endures, though he and his men are fighting for their very survival against the denizens of the Great Rift, the demons and renegades of chaos. Cast adrift and war-weary, hope appears too distant to grasp until the storm breaks at last and a strange world beckons. As the captain and a band of his chosen warriors descend to the surface seeking aid, they find an isolated land, seemingly from an ancient era, one plagued by a terrible enemy. Sicarius will not see this world suffer and pledges his warriors to the world's cause, determined to save it, whatever the cost. But what is the dark secret harboured here, and what will it mean for the Ultramarines if they discover it? Void King by Mark Collins. Proud Lamartine, fierce Helvinter, cunning Redrexus. Since the halcyon days of the Great Crusade, these noble rogue trader dynasties have plied the void in the Emperor's name, answering to whomsoever sits as the king of the Davamere Compact. There has been profit and adventure and abundance in these times. Yet now the galaxy is changed, divided by the birth of the Great Rift. As plans are drawn up for the most immense crusade imaginable, the Emperor's reborn son demands that the Compact seek a way across the rift. When tragedy and betrayal threaten all their endeavours, it is the Lamartine heir, Erastus, who must rise to the fore, to guide the disparate forces of the Compact in service to their sacred mission, to avenge the wounds done to them by hidden hands, and to reveal the darkest secrets threatening the Imperium's dreams of unity. The Gate of Bones by Andy Clark. As the Indomitus crusade begins, fleets of mighty warships leave Terra on a vital quest to stabilise Imperium Sanctus in the wake of the Great Rift. The returned Primarch Rabute Guilliman leads a huge force towards the shrine world of Gathalamor, where stable warp routes will allow the flotilla to spread across the beleaguered southern half of the Imperium. But grave tidings reach the Imperial Regent's ears, warnings from an ancient race, and eerie silence from the army tasked with holding Gathalamor until his arrival, lead Guilliman to send a reconnaissance mission to the world, at its head Shield Captain Ashalor of the Adeptus Custodes. But grave tidings reach the Imperial Regent's ears, warnings from an ancient race, and eerie silence from the army tasked with holding Gathalamor until his arrival, lead Guilliman to send a reconnaissance mission to the world. At its head, Shield Captain Ashalor of the Adeptus Custodes. Ashalor discovers a world on the brink, a beaten Imperial force and sinister agents of Abaddon the Despoiler, who have unearthed an ancient evil, a weapon that when harnessed not only threatens the Primarch, but perhaps the Holy Throne of Terra itself. Watchers of the Throne, The Regent's Shadow by Chris Raitt. As Guilliman, Regent of Terra, heads off to lead the Indomitus crusade, he leaves behind a world still in turmoil, beset by cult activity. Stripped of its huge armies for the galactic offensive, recovery is precarious. The custodians do what they can while keeping the palace secure, and the Sisters of Silence rebuild their citadel on Luna. When the warship Phalanx returns, it seems that stability will at last be assured. However, as Reconquest forces push out further into the slums, they come across signs that another mysterious foe is active. The truth dawns. Not every enemy is corrupted by chaos, for there are many on Terra who do not share Guilliman's vision of a new order, and the prospect of a Terran civil war looms. Ephrael Stern, the Heretic Saint, by David Annandale. Throughout the tortured galaxy, Ephrael Stern is known by many names: the Thrice-Born, the Daemonifuge, the Heretic Saint. Trapped deep within Imperial Nihilus following the coming of the Great Rift, the maligned Sister of Battle fears the Imperium is no more, the God Emperor's light, which has guided her through centuries of strife, has too extinguished. Seemingly forsaken, Stern is bereft until a mysterious stranger arrives, offering her a new destiny, one that might yet see the Imperium saved. Stern must prove herself worthy of the God Emperor's grace once more, lest a new threat, greater than any mankind has faced before, plunge humanity into a nightmare abyss of nothingness. The Wolf Time by Gav Thorpe. The Indomitus Crusade has brought the Emperor's vengeance to thousands of star systems. The fleets and armies under the leadership of Rabute Guilliman fight for the survival of humanity against the forces of the Chaos Gods. But the traitors and heretics are not the only foe looking to destroy the rule of terror. Xenos prey on human worlds in numbers not seen for millennia. Worst amongst them are the rampaging orcs, whose migration conquests threaten to reverse the many gains of Fleet Primus, and their throaty bellows carry a name not heard in years, of destruction made flesh, a bestial warlord without peer, Gazkul Mag Uruk Thraka. In the midst of this brutal tide is Fenris, world of the Space Wolves under Logan Grimnar. Depleted by ever greater demands on their warriors, called upon by the Legion Breaker Guilliman, the Wolves of Fenris face a momentous decision. Grimnar and his counsellors must choose whether their fate is to ally themselves with an ancient rival and risk all that makes them the Volca Fenrica, or to accept their demise and wait for the return of their own Primarch and the coming of the Wolf Time. Vaults of Terror, The Dark City by Chris Raitt. The Throne World is in turmoil, racked by the opening of the Great Rift and the failure of the Astronomicon. Inquisitor Erasmus Crowell, his mind and body ravaged by what he has seen in the Hollow Mountain, is missing, taking with him the clues to the conspiracy that has come to obsess him. Luce Spinoza, his interrogator, must choose whether to seek him out or defend her diminished realm from the many forces that still seek to destroy it. As enemies circle, interrogator Spinoza enters a race against time to find the evidence she needs. But with the fate of humanity itself hanging in the balance, she must decide what lengths she is willing to go to in order to uncover the truth. Throne of Light by Guy Haley. The Indomitus Crusade continues its war across the stars. The Primarch Rabute Guilliman has finally broken through the orcish threat bedeviling the sectors near Fenris, and makes ready to push on in his bid to stabilise Imperium Sanctus, but old foes have returned. Corpheron, the Dark Cardinal, threatens the previously stable core of the Segmentum Solar. Waves of rebellion instigated by his evil priests suggest imminent large-scale invasion by the Wordbearer's Legion. Worse yet, the Dark Cardinal's warriors are targeting the Black Ships, threatening to starve terror of the psychers the Emperor needs to survive. Through this turbulent war zone, Inquisitor Rostov continues his search for the Hand of Abaddon. Yet, when strange, miraculous visions are traced back to the astropathic relay on Srinagar, his quest is diverted, for the visions are a foretelling of hope for the Imperium, a hope the fanatical worshippers of chaos will do anything to snuff out. The Iron Kingdom by Nick Kime. A war-weary battle group Praxis arrives at the night world of Kamidar, ruled by the Iron Queen Orlar, to return the Queen's slain daughter and heir, who died fighting in Guilliman's name. In truth, the Imperium's mission here is twofold: to strip Kamidar of its resources in order to resupply the flagging armada, and prepare the Ironhold Protectorate to become part of the defensive Anaxian line, a crucial bulwark for the Indomitus Crusade. With Kamidar having survived many years without the Imperium's aid, what should have been a simple reunion between allies soon becomes a vicious feud. As division turns loyal souls against one another, the agents of Abaddon move in the shadows, seeking to manipulate this growing rift to their own ends. Can the Imperium bring itself back from the brink before it's too late, or will the Hand of Abaddon arise triumphant, halting the avenging sun's reclamation in its path? The Martyr's Tomb by Mark Collins. The Indomitus Crusade burns on across the stars, while new threats emerge to challenge mankind's resurgence. As the Kingdom of Iron is secured and the Primarch Reborn's thoughts turn to future salience, the arch-enemy strikes back against the Crusade's forces. The shrine worlds of the Golden Chain are all but broken, and only Velua remains defiant. Canoness Irinia of the Order of Our Martyred Lady and Champion Geheris of the Black Templars hold the line, fighting against the plague-ridden cultists reducing the planet to anarchy. While the war rages on and the true enemy makes itself known, the fate of Velua and the wider crusade may rest upon the shoulders of another of the Imperial Regent's agents, the disgraced rogue trader Katla Halventir. Heroes rise and worlds fall, and only the light of faith will guide the warriors of the Imperium to their destiny. Sea of Souls by Chris Raitt. The mighty fleets of the Indomitus Crusade face terrors and dangers beyond imagining. As Guilliman's crusade marches forth, bringing the Emperor's light to thousands of worlds, Fleet Secundus is headed for the darkest dark, the Eye of Terror itself, where Secundus will execute a major offensive deep into the heart of the arch-enemy. Along with warriors of the Adeptus Sororitas and the Adeptus Astartes, the Imperial Navy battlecruiser Judgment of the Void pushes deeper and deeper into contested space. But as their journey unfolds, the greater schemes of the Indomitus Crusade begin to descend into treachery and intrigue. And as the forces of chaos close in, a battle for survival is about to unfold, one which has ramifications not just for Fleet Secundus, but for the future of the galaxy itself. Indomitus by Gav Thorpe. For nearly 10 years, the Indomitus Crusade has waged a war of defiance and reconquest in the war-torn Imperium. Attached to Crusade Fleet Quintus, dubbed the Cursed Fleet by many, the Ultramarines of the Ithraka's Vengeance are drawn to a stricken world. With millions enslaved, a malign Necron technology siphons the souls of the innocent and heralds the Silent Kingdom's expansion. The Ultramarines face an impossible decision: mount a desperate last stand to destroy the Pariah Nexus, or break away and damn the entire sector to bring word of this ancient foe's resurgence to the only being capable of halting it, the Lord Primarch Rebute Guilliman. Hand of Abaddon by Nick Kime. As the Indomitus Crusade rages on, Inquisitor Vostok discovers vital intelligence that could reveal the plan of the notorious Hand of Abaddon, and hastily he gathers together those loyal to his course. Defending the Anaxian line, Ultramarines Lieutenant Ferrin Areos uncovers a dread vision that has ties to the mission of an old ally. Meanwhile, Magdakesh campaigns alongside the 84th Mordian, though she refutes her fate as something more than a mere soldier. Is she truly touched by the Emperor? Despite a fractious alliance, the Hand's scheme is reaching culmination. Amidst the infighting, Tharador Yeng yearns to be free of her master, Tenebrous' shadow, and claim her destiny. But another acolyte has embarked on his own path, the Red Corsair Grail Herrick. Both vie for the favour of the Dark Gods and the means to harness an ancient evil that could reshape the war between the Imperium and Chaos. Huron Blackheart, Master of the Maelstrom by Mike Brooks. Huron Blackheart is the Lord of the Red Corsairs, master of the lawless Maelstrom and its piratical denizens, but oathbreakers and renegades can seldom rely on the loyalty of their followers. With the galaxy thrown into turmoil by the return of Rebute Guilliman, the former Tyrant of Badab faces a renewed Imperium and fresh challenges emerging within his own ranks. Huron must call on every trick he knows to stay in control and alive. Yet even a warrior as ferocious and opportunistic as the Blood Reaver must be wary, for although there are many bargains he can strike, all power comes at a price. The Silent King by Guy Haley. The avenging sun must delay his return home and head to the galactic south, taking a large part of the crusade with him, for the menace of the Necrons is gathering strength. Battlefleet Calades, dispatched into the dangerous null space of the Pariah Nexus some years before, is feared lost. A greater unity is being forged between the Necron dynasties, and with it come whispers of a power from the ancient past returned to rule them all, whispers of the silent king. Dark Imperium by Guy Haley. Fell times have come to the galaxy. Cadia has fallen, destroyed by the onslaught of chaos. A great rift in the warp has opened, and from its depths spew demons and the horrors of old night. But all hope is not lost. A hero, long absent, has returned, and with him comes the wrath of the Ultramarines reborn. Rebute Gilliman has risen to lead the Imperium out of darkness on a crusade the likes of which has not been seen since the fabled days of the Emperor. But never before have the forces of ruin amassed in such numbers, and nowhere is safe from despoilation. From the dreaded Scourge stars come the hordes of the Plague Father, Lord Nurgle, and their pustulant eye is fixed on Macragge. As the Indomitus crusade rages on, Gilliman races to Ultramar and a confrontation with the Death Guard. Plague War by Guy Haley. In the void and upon the worlds of greater Ultramar, the battle for the Imperium continues. Intent on rebuilding his home realm and using it as a base to reconstruct the ravaged stellar empire of mankind, the returned Primarch, Rebute Gilliman, proceeds with his war to drive Mortarion and his Death Guard Traitor Legion from the domain of the Ultramarines. But when Gilliman brings his brother to battle upon the diseased plains of Parmenio, the intervention of a greater power in their fraternal struggle threatens to upend the Imperial Regent's understanding of the galaxy and his place within it. Primarchs and ideologies clash in this thrilling second part of the Dark Imperium trilogy. Godblight by Guy Haley. The paths of Rebute Gilliman and his fallen brother Mortarion bring them inexorably together on Ajax. Once a jewel in the Imperium, the Garden World is dying as the plans of the Lord of Death to use it as a fulcrum to drag the stellar realm of Ultramar into the warp come to deadly fruition. While Gilliman attempts to prevent the destruction of his kingdom, Mortarion schemes to bring his brother low with the Godblight, a disease created in the cauldron of Nurgle itself, made with the power to destroy a son of the Emperor. Primarchs clash on the ravaged landscapes of Ajax. The gods go to war, and the wider galaxy balances on a knife edge of destruction. As something powerful stirs in the sea of souls, only one thing is certain. No matter who wins the last great clash of the Plague War, the repercussions of victory will echo through eternity. Belisarius Cawl, The Great Work by Guy Haley. Belisarius Cawl, Archmagos Dominus of the Adeptus Mechanicus, is the most brilliant mind alive. For 10,000 years he has furthered the cause of mankind, working under the aegis of the Emperor and Lord Commander Rebute Gilliman to prevent the inexorable march of the alien and the traitor. Many call him heretic, but all must recognise the magnitude of his achievements, for who else but he was entrusted to create a new generation of Space Marines? Who else but the great Belisarius Cawl could even accomplish such a task? Now, in the wake of the Great Rift and the Indomitus Crusade, his ambitions bring him to the long-dead world of Sotha, once home to the scythes of the Emperor, now a barren wasteland devoured by the vile Tyranids. Accompanied by Tetrarch Felix and his elite warriors, it is here that Cawl believes the linchpin of his mysterious great work lies. But uncovering it is a near impossible task, one in which the Archmagos must overcome an ancient evil that threatens to extinguish the last hope of humanity. Genefather by Guy Haley. In the hope of taming the great rift that divides the galaxy in two, Archmagos Belisarius Cawl invites representatives from across the Imperium to the artificial world of Pontus Avernus. Confident he can convince them of his genius, he must secure their assistance in unlocking the secrets of the Pylon network, significant structures built by an ancient race that he believes can stave off the pull of the warp. But among the attendees is an uninvited guest, Fabius Bile himself. The Pater Mutatis needs no validation of his genius, and has his own agendas, the pursuit of which will bring about an epic confrontation of the galaxy's greatest scientific minds, and from which only one can emerge victorious. The Devastation of Baal by Guy Haley. The Blood Angels chapter of Space Marines is under threat. Having obliterated all human life in the Red Scar region of space, the largest tendril of Hive Fleet Leviathan ever seen in the Imperium has converged and is making relentlessly for Baal. To face this awesome foe, Commander Dante has called upon the successor chapters of the ancient Ninth Legion. The sons of Sanguinius gather in numbers not seen since the dark days of the Horus Heresy. 30,000 Space Marines stand ready to thwart the Great Devourer, save the homeworld of their Primarch, and prevent the consumption of billions in the Ultima Segmentum beyond. But the Tyrannid swarm numbers in the trillions, and they are not the only danger to the chapter's future. As the galaxy slides towards a terrifying new era, events far away threaten to unleash a greater evil. A further enemy must also be overcome, that of the Black Rage that lurks in the souls of all Sanguinius's bloodline. The Lion, Son of the Forest by Mike Brooks. After 10,000 years of dreaming, locked in stasis at the heart of his shattered homeworld, Lionel Johnson wakes to the nightmare of Imperium Nihilus. In this midnight age, the dying embers of humanity are threatened on all sides by the hungry darkness. Alone, even the Lion has no hope of prevailing against such evil, but there are those who would aid him in his quest. Hunted to the edge of endurance, many among his fallen knights have long awaited the day their liege would return to redeem them. The Lord of Shadowed Paths must gather these lost loyalists to his side once more, and stride forth to vanquish a traitorous son and the twisted Chaos Warband that calls him master. Faced with these strange times, the Lion can be certain of nothing and no one except for himself. But in a galaxy without the Emperor, without the Imperium, without his Legion, and without Caliban, who is he? Warzone Caradon, Act 1, The Book of Rust. The Traveller brings doom. Forge World Metallica is the furnace heart of war production in the Caradon sector. Upon the orders of the Despoiler, Typhus leads a vast invasion into the Caradon heartlands, seeking to besiege Metallica and to infect it with Nurgle's plagues. Beneath this fetid banner fight not only the forces of the Death Guard, but also warbands from the Black Legion, Wordbearers, Alpha Legion, and countless others. Alongside them come twisted Chaos Knights, endless tides of mutants, cultists and demons, and even the towering abominations of the Legio Morbidus. Yet against this invading horde stands an imperial alliance between the armies of the Adeptus Mechanicus, the Adeptus Astartes, the Astra Militarum, and many more. Fighting to dominate the systems of the Lyric and Obelisk subsectors, these two vast forces unleash their deadliest weapons in a war that threatens to annihilate the very worlds over which it is fought. Warzone Caradon, Act 2, The Book of Fire. On the brink of annihilation. Forge World Metallica is besieged. Typhus and his plague-ridden hosts seek to infect the planet with the gruesome and terminal malady known as the Nemesis Worm. As the worlds of their system burn and warp storms rage all around, the planet's defenders stand alone against the nightmare onslaught. Elsewhere, dark shadows stir as an ancient and terrible entity is summoned forth to bedevil the Imperium anew. At the head of his mortal disciples, Be'lakor steps from the depths of the warp to launch a malevolent attack upon Colossi, the homeworld of House Raven. Throughout the war zone, Imperial forces battle exhaustion, isolation and horror as they strive to outlast their heretical foes. Yet amidst the darkness blazes fierce new light, for a battle group of the Indomitus Crusade has at last come in answer to the region's cries for aid, one led by Abbess Sanctorum Morven Val herself. Warzone Octarius, Book 1, Rising Tide. Gambits and Calamity. For years, the orcs of the Octarian Empire have fought the invading Tyranids of High Fleet Leviathan. For years, the Imperium has feared what would happen if these two deadly Xenos races looked outward to the human worlds bordering Octarian space. Now the Imperium's fears have become reality. Tyranids and orcs alike are descending on vulnerable human worlds. Though the Imperium has attempted to prepare, it is not ready. The Cordon Impenetra, the mastermind defense work of Inquisitor Nashir Sahansun, is far from complete. Nevertheless, the Imperium fights back. The Death Watch and Space Marines from numerous chapters rush to stem the tide of invaders alongside the great Macroclades of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Across the Pancalis subsector, worlds are embroiled in the inferno of war. Meanwhile, Inquisitor Athocles van Roth hatches a plan, a desperate effort fraught with danger, to bring about the total defeat of the Tyranids. On both these war fronts, the forces of the Imperium must be ready to do whatever it takes. Warzone Octarius, Book 2, Critical Mass. Systems will be torn asunder. The terrible wars of the Octarius sector continue. The system of Sigmar Ulstari, home to the Forge world of the same name, has been relentlessly attacked and is on its last knees. Dealing with countless refugees, rising heretical cults and the remnants of previous invasions, it faces yet another assault from hordes of Xenos beasts and monstrosities. Desperately, it has been calling for aid. Will help come? At the heart of the Octarius sector is the Octarius system, seat of power for the Overfiend, the immensely powerful Orc warlord who controls the Octarian Empire. For years, the Greenskins have fought an endless, joyous war against the Tyranids of High Fleet Leviathan, invaders of the system. Now the Overfiend will fight the hardest war of his life, as the Swarm Lord brings vast fleets of hive ships and countless trillions of bioforms to break the stalemate once and for all. Imperium Nihilus, Vigilus Defiant. 1,000 armies converge upon this fated world, 1 billion times 1 billion warriors battling for a desiccated ball of rock that may just prove to be the fulcrum upon which the fate of the galaxy pivots. It is a war that we cannot, must not lose. Marneus Calgar. Imperium Nihilus, Vigilus Ablaze. Fight fire with fire, fight fury with fury, but most important of all, fight on, however you can, and do not stop until you have shed every drop of your blood in the name of the Emperor. Only then will you know peace. Pontifex Sline, Galloc of Hyperia. Warzone Nakmund, Vigilus Alone. A war of saints and demons. The worlds of the Vigilus system have echoed to the clamour of cataclysmic war for decades, assailed not only by Xenos, but also the armies of Abaddon the Despoiler. A fragile survival was bought at terrible cost. Now Vigilus itself must stand or fall without its most heroic saviour. Faith must shine brighter than ever if the system is to weather the coming storm. Against the Chaos and Xenos forces stand the fragmented armies of the Astra Militarum, the Adeptus Auroritus, the Adeptus Mechanicus, and the Adeptus Astartes, while among them move imperial agents of light and dark, a living saint and a shadowy inquisitor. Genestealer cultists strike from their hidden domains, and orcs unleash brutal assaults on any their ravaging mobs find. The heretic Astartes, chaos cultists, and demons of the warp attack with unrelenting fury to deliver the Nakmund gauntlet into Abaddon's hands. Vigilus is besieged, its neighbouring systems imperilled, and the great rift closing in. If it cannot stand, then this beleaguered bastion world and all of its defenders will be damned for eternity. Warzone Nakmund, Rift War. Onslaught of the World Claimer. Hearken World Claimer, Lieutenant of Abaddon the Despoiler and Herald of the Apocalypse, leads one of the mightiest traitor hosts ever assembled. His mission, given to him by Abaddon himself, is to claim the Nachmund Gauntlet in its entirety, smashing aside any and all Imperial resistance he encounters. The Nachmund Gauntlet is a near lawless place, home to pirates, xenos, traitors and renegades aplenty. Yet few places are as strategically important to the Imperium of man, for it is the most stable route known through the Great Rift. Without it, contact between Terra and the Imperium Sanctus, with the beleaguered worlds of the Imperium Nihilus, would be all but lost. The Imperium cannot afford to lose the Gauntlet, but its fleets and armies are exhausted and overstretched. Even as the systems around the world of Sangua Terra at the southern end of the Gauntlet are reinforced, rebellion and sedition begin to take hold. Crusade, Nachmund Gauntlet. The Nachmund Gauntlet is the largest and most stable of the known routes across the Great Rift. Once a lifeline to deliver reinforcements to those cut off from Holy Terror, it is now a channel through which the destructive treachery of the traitor legions can flow from the Imperium Nihilus. The forces of Abaddon the Despoiler have bludgeoned their way through the Nachmund Gauntlet, with his herald Harken Worldclaimer at their spear tip. Only the hastily defended Sanctus Wall of loyal systems stand poised to resist, already weakened by heretical agents. On the fortified world of Sangua Terra, scarred by the insanity of the warp, Junitha Ruta lays her plans and braces for the heretics' impact. War on a colossal scale unfolds, one in which grand strategies of conquest and defiance are entwined with bold heroism and darkest betrayal. Arcs of Omen, Abaddon. The galaxy writhes like a wounded beast, tormented by the infected sores of countless warp storms. It laments in agony. While the forces of the Imperium Sanctus fight tooth and nail to regain control, the worlds of the Imperium Nihilus endure besiegement by nightmares uncounted. The forces of chaos attack on every front, from the Nachmund Gauntlet to the Caradon sector. Alien races battle furiously for survival, or rampage across the stars in orgies of conquest and destruction. Yet no one faction can truly gain mastery. Every victory and defeat only sees the inferno rage hotter. Abaddon the Despoiler has not laboured for thousands of years to see his long war end in mutual annihilation. His hands move unseen through the shadows on secret and diabolical missions. His legions of sorcerers and cryptomagi pore over every shred of arcane lore and prophetic utterance ever gathered, hunting for some esoteric advantage that will allow the War Master to seize decisive control of the conflict. Abaddon desires a secret weapon to unleash upon the Imperium of Man, and he will tear apart time and space if he must to secure it. Arcs of Omen, Angron. The Eaters of Worlds, the blood god's sacred slaughtermen, chosen legion of Khorne. None there are who offer greater tribute to the Lord of Skulls, none more committed to battle in his name. Many are those who brand the World Eaters shattered, fragmented sons of a broken father. Those same fools soon fall beneath the churning teeth of blooded blades, their skulls cast, flensed upon the offering pile. Yet for all their sacred butchery, there are none amongst this blood-blessed brotherhood to compare to their sire. He is the bladed hurricane. He is the unstoppable beast, fury given form, the gore-spattered demigod of carnage. He is the Red Angel, and demons and mortals have slain and striven for the honour of fighting in his charnel shadow. He is Angron, the Eater of Worlds, and his onset heralds death. Arcs of Omen, Vashtor. Where mesh the cogs of industry to grind between their ever-turning teeth, the flesh and blood and soul stuff of the mortal and the infernal both. Where roars the hungry furnace, its flames hope to devour, its heat to give life from searing crucible unto molten ore, and blood and bile a bubble. Where scratches the quill and clatter the keys, by candle flame and cold buzzing lumen lit, by desperate hand and mind obsessed, driven, set free by morality discarded. Where sparks the wire, where writhes the cable, where blends the flesh and the adamant, where makes the engine infernal, and where laments the bound and bargained soul. There do you find him, there do you see him, and in the seeing does he know your heart, your mind, your price. There waits Vashtor the Arcaphane, and damnation is his gift. Arcs of Omen, Farsight. The stars are lashed by a galaxy-wide storm of war and butchery, whose carmine downpour never abates. Such times are not for those of conscience or principle, yet such beings must endure this dark era nonetheless, and strive to keep their heads above the bloody flood. One such paragon is Chasseur-Viola Chauvecaille-Montier, he who is known as Commander Farsight. Few amongst the short-lived and bright-burning Tau have ever risen to such heights of martial glory, nor been driven by conscience and circumstance to such dark and desperate extremes. To some amongst his people, Farsight is a pariah and a deviant. To others, he is a saviour, a protector, the worthiest ever to wear the vaunted hero's mantle. For all the power of his legend, Farsight remains in his own mind the unworthy pupil of a greater master. Ever he strives to do what is right for those he leads, and ever he seeks to live up to the teachings of old Commander Puretide. Yet the years have not been kind. As the bloody rains of battle continue to fall, so the dam of Oshova's nobility and self-discipline groans under the strain. And if it should burst, what ruin then might be wrought on all the commander has striven so long to protect. Arcs of Omen, the Lion. Long slumbered the lion in tragedy's wake. Far wandered his sleeping mind, following strange paths through the arboreal mists of a shattered world, even as slowly, so slowly, his broken body healed. Monstrous and otherworldly were the things he hunted through shadowed ghost glades, while beyond his crypt the stars wheeled and the sands of time whirled upon hurricane winds. The lion slept on. Darkness deepened between the stars. Tragedy piled upon tragedy. Hope became the opiate of fools, and even such heroes as Lionel Johnson dwindled into whispered myth. Then light, then wakefulness, then striding tall, purposeful, armoured, blade in hand, cowled and watchful, the mind dislocated from its old truths, even as the body burned with fresh vitality, and the hearts beat with the cold resolution of vengeance. Parting veils of silvered shadow through the ghosts of Caliban's slain forests, the lion walked abroad in the galaxy once more, for loyalty, for the hunt, for the Emperor. Crusade, Pariah Nexus. The zone of silence spreads, raising sinister noctilith pylons upon world after world. The Silent King and his Necron legions have expanded the boundaries of the Nephilim anomaly to swallow ever more planetary systems. Imperial, heretic, and Xenos strongholds alike have vanished beneath its smothering anti-psychic shroud. Yet the Necron's efforts to sever real space from the warp have not gone unopposed. As the nature of the threat becomes ever clearer, Imperial war hosts have been dispatched to the Nephilim sector in greater numbers. Now, a fresh armada, sent by Rebute Gilliman himself and overseen by the acquisitive Archmagos Call, have struck deep into the Nephilim anomaly. But have they come to topple the Noctilith edifices of their enemies, or to harvest and experiment upon them? Leviathan by Darius Hinks. The fortress world of Regium has a proud history. For millennia it has endured when others have fallen to ruin and damnation, standing defiant in defence of the imperium of man. But now it is shaken. Parasitic plagues run rampant, and Regium's citizens are haunted by dreams of horrific monsters feasting upon their flesh and marrow. Lieutenant Castamon of the Ultramarines recognises these signs of an impending Tyranid invasion all too well. Rallying his warriors, the battle-hardened veteran launches a strike force to slaughter the Xenos in the outer system before it can reach Regium. But as this new tendril of High Fleet Leviathan proves unpredictable and deadly, Castamon and the First Company must harness all their skill, might and zeal, or face utter annihilation. Crusade, Tyrannic War, the Great Devourer Unleashed. From the dark depths of the Segmentum Pacificus, a fresh alien threat stretches forth tendrils towards the very heartlands of humanity. Seething Tyranid invasion swarms pour from the void in incalculable numbers and devour world after world in their slow but relentless advance towards the Segmentum Solar. If this peril is not countered, it may threaten the sanctity of the Sol system and Holy Terror itself. Resolved never to permit such horrors to come to pass, some of the Imperium's greatest war leaders rushed to meet the Xenos invasion with a devastating counter-offensive. Led by such storied warlords as Ultramarines First Captain Severus Agamon and Captain General Trajan Valoris of the Adeptus Custodes, the Soulblade fleets sally forth to meet the foe head-on. Meanwhile, Lord Solar Leontus coordinates a colossal second line of defence should any enemy break through. Yet the hive mind is possessed of infinite cunning and terrible hunger, and its plans may yet undo those of humanity altogether. Crusade, Armageddon. The hive world of Armageddon has suffered wars of unimaginable horror. Now, with the planet battered by warp storms and empiric corruption, a new conflict dawns. Amid the blazing fire wastes, the warp rift, known as the Red Angel's Gate, has erupted into being, and from its cursed depths flood torrents of empiric energy and tides of bloodthirsty demons. As the corruption spreads, Armageddon's hives seethe with heretic uprisings and rebellions. Imperial forces, foremost amongst them the Black Templars, Space Wolves and Grey Knights, descend upon the beleaguered hive world in hopes of bringing salvation. And yet a greater threat looms, for as the rippling echoes of the Red Angel's Gate pulse through the warp, others too hear the call. The demon Primarch Angron comes for Armageddon. So too do the remnants of his savage legion, intent on drowning the planet in blood.